To start the prayer, and then we will hand it over to you. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Pranti, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So, I'll be chanting the Patanjali's prayer. So, we'll start with Om and then move into the prayer. यस्यक्त्वा रूपमाद्यं प्रभवति जगतो नेकदानुग्रहाय प्रक्षीणक्लेशराशिर्विषमविषधरोऽनेकवक्त्रः सुभोगी सर्वज्ञानप्रसूतिर्भुजगपरिकर प्रीतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीशः स वो व्यात् सितविमलतनुर्योगदो योगयुक्तः योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिराणतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Thank you, Kranti. Namaste, everyone, again. I just want to briefly say a few words to introduce Dr. Rajan, and then I will hand it over the session to him. I already sent you his bio, so you already know what he is and all that. But I want to say a few things from a personal standpoint. So I've known Dr. Rajan for almost 10 years now. He walked into my life pretty much in 2015, walked into our house and walked into my life. For the first 2-3 years, or maybe first 5 years until about 2020, it was a regular, normal relationship. And then in 2019, late 2019, I had a deep crisis, a deep personal crisis, and I just did not know how to handle it. So this happened in India. So when I got back here, the COVID time started, and Dr. Rajan started this remote yoga class, and I joined that. And as part of that, he started teaching Hatha Yoga. I mean, he started teaching Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So that's how I learned Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And through the sutras, through his teaching, and through his guidance, I fully came out of the crisis completely. If not for the teachings and the sutras, I would have probably ended up in a mental asylum. So on that note, so there is such a huge, it was such a huge impact on my life that within a year, I could understand the sutras quite deeply. And that's the reason for wanting to share this knowledge. So with a very deep gratitude to Dr. Rajan, to Life in Yoga Institute, and to the Divine, I will hand it over to Dr. Rajan. Thank you, Dr. Rajan. Please take it away. Namaste.
Namaste, everyone. I see over here we have people from India as well as from the United States. Can I have a show of hands? How many people are from India? Oh, there are quite a many people from India. But at the end of it, if Kumarji permits, what I will do is just hot off the press, worked out yesterday. We will be having a conference in Pondicherry on January 31st and February 1st. And so those of you who are from India, if it is okay, I will share a glimpse of it at the end of the session. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Please.
Okay. Okay. So just to start off where Kranti gave that beautiful, what you would call, it's not only invocation, but also more explaining what the path of yoga is in that shlokas that she recited. You see, the key role of yoga is purification. And that is the message that comes from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. That purification leads to what you would call, you can call it as moksha, salvation, whatever you may call. But that is what the message of the Yoga Sutra is, how to purify yourself. And that is the starting point. And from there, everything else that happens moves forward. So Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is an essay. And it is an essay in 4 segments. But of course, in the English translation, the padas have been called chapters, which is okay, but it's really one essay, right? And every essay has an introductory overview, or you can call it as the executive summary, which is the first part. And then you have the body of the text. And finally, you have the conclusive overview. So this is the method of organization of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Now, what has happened is, in any literature that has inspired so many people worldwide over so many centuries, so many millenniums, people have written their own perceptions and views on it. And sometimes when you work with the mental analysis, you often come up with answers that are not truly the right perspective. It is only when you have the spiritual yogic connection that you are able to fully understand what exactly is the meaning of the Yoga Sutras. Now, one problem that has happened within the entire system of translation of Yoga Sutras is that it has been compared in the way in which you view it with the document of Vedanta. Now, many people here would know that the document of Vedanta is called the Brahma Sutras. And the Brahma Sutras were authored by Maharishi Vyasa. Vyasa is the person who actually wrote the Brahma Sutras. He wrote the Brahma Sutras after compiling the Vedas. And the way it was written, as scholars point out, that you cannot even approach the Brahma Sutras without first having in-depth knowledge of the 10 major Upanishads, because each line has a reference to the Upanishad. Now, people have started to look at the Yoga Sutra in the same way with each line. And as a result, an essay which can be printed in 6 pages, people have written thousands of pages of volumes on it. And what is very interesting is, each person who has come along later from a scholarly perspective has not only referred to Patanjali, but also to all the later authors who have commented on it. And so the volume becomes larger and larger, and they go into thousands of pages. So the thing is, basically, when you talk about purification, Patanjali Muni is very clear. Make yourself light, throw out all unwanted stuff, get rid of all the accumulations that have come in, right? All your karmas and kleshas. So the same way, when you approach the Yoga Sutras, you should throw away all these in-depth commentaries and just go to the essence of it, right? So what I will do today is a little bit of a busy day, so I'm a little time constrained, in the sense as soon as I finish this, I have to step out for another presentation elsewhere. So I'm going to give you an overview of the entire Yoga Sutras, so that from here on, any discussion you have of the Yoga Sutra, you will be able to map it in the overall sense. See, but when you start looking at each sutra at a time, it's like counting the leaves and forgetting the whole tree as a whole, right? So today we will focus on the tree as a whole, and then later on you can go on to nitpicking on the leaves. So now let's go, and I'm going to share a little bit on the perspective of where Yoga Sutras come from. Yoga Sutras, many people may not know how it relates to the Vedic system. In fact, the Yoga Sutras are closely allied with the Vedic system. In fact, the Yoga Sutras predate the work of Vyasa, the Brahma Sutra, and the compilation of the Vedas. And why do we say that? We agree that Vedas were older than the point when they were compiled. But why do we say this is older than the Brahma Sutras? Because it has been chronologically verified that there are 6 ancient philosophies or darshanas of the Vedic tradition. And the 6 of them, the oldest is considered the Sankhya philosophy. Second in chronological order is considered the Nyaya philosophy. Third is the Vaisheshika philosophy. Fourth is the Purva Mimamsa. Fifth in line is the Yoga Sutras. And last chronologically is the Brahma Sutras of the Vedanta, right? So chronologically, Yoga Sutras is a predecessor, and as much as all the other philosophies. And when you look at the older philosophies, again you have to read it like an essay. It is only the Vedanta that is little different, okay, the Brahma Sutra. So in this context, when we look at it, you will find the language of the Yoga Sutras is a little different from that of the Brahma Sutras. And at the same time, there is a parity. And how do we know there is a parity? In fact, Vyasa is never known to have written a commentary on any other document except one. You know all the things that he authored. As an editor, first he compiled the Vedas. Then, of course, he wrote all the Puranas. And he among the Puranas, they have the old Mahapuranas and the Upapuranas. But then after that comes the Itihasa Puranas. That includes the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the, what is the third one? The story of Harishchandra. Well, whatever, I forget the name of that, this thing. But those were the 3 that he compiled, that he wrote. But he also wrote, the only commentary he ever wrote was on the Yoga Sutras. So the Yoga Sutra Bhashya is available. But then again, you have to translate the thing from the Sanskrit to understand it better. And in fact, one of the things that in the translation, in the commentary that he has written on the Yoga Sutra, that establishes the parity. There may be verbal differences how they present, but it is exactly the same philosophy, is the concept of what is brahmacharya. Commonly, a lot of people, and thanks to the influence of Buddhism, have started interpreting brahmacharya as meaning celibacy. How many people here think it is celibacy? Okay, so you have a little bit of a surprise over here. It doesn't mean celibacy. And Vyasa himself says that it is the upliftment of the 11th sense organ. And he defines the 11th sense organ as the mind. So in other words, when the mind expands, that is what is brahmacharya. And if you go back to the root word of what brahmacharya means, is Brahma means all of creation. All of existence is Brahma. And how do we know all of existence is Brahma? Because the root word comes from the word Brahmayati, means to create. And the one who is the creator of that we call Brahma. So the Brahma is all of creation, Brahma. And, often in the Upanishadic English literature, they will call Brahma means God, they will say, and things like that. That's not the correct way of understanding it. The God is a different entity who is part of creation and yet outside creation. And so sometimes the word Parabrahma is used for the concept of God. But the thing is, we understand Brahma, and what is the second root word over there? Chara. Chara means to move. Charya is the state of movement. So brahmacharya means to explore all of existence is what brahmacharya means. Which means, as Vyasa says, it is uplifting the mind to seek out, to learn. And that is why a student is called brahmachari. Everyone who is sitting over here is a brahmachari. And so the thing is basically, don't worry whether you have married, you have had children or whatever, you're all brahmacharis, right? Because you have curiosity to know, you want to learn, right? So putting that aside now, the concept of how we approach the Yoga Sutra and where contextually it fills in within the Vedic system. Now, let's get on to, I've already mentioned the structure, but then let me kind of share a little bit about the actual number of sutras in each one of the segments. And in fact, when you look at that, that actually gives you a little bit of a perspective on the where Patanjali has really focused his mind on. You will see over here that there are in the four padas, the first pada is called Samadhi pada with 51 sutras. Second is called Sadhana pada with 55 sutras. And the third is called Vibhuti pada with 56 sutras. And the last one, Kaivalya pada, has 34 sutras. This itself is giving you a little bit of an insight on where he views as the importance over here. Patanjali's view in creating the Yoga Sutra is really to share with people not about the existence of the world, but rather to give you the answer, what existence about, to give for the seeker who is looking for who am I, what is this existence all about. He gives the answers for that. And what is the clear answer over there? The clear answer is purify yourself and experience within. And how do you purify yourself? By being less affected by things around you. Be an observer most of the time, a non-reactive observer, except where your duty is called for, which is your dharma, swadharma. So this is the prescription of how you purify yourself. So now I will get into, as I've already mentioned, the first chapter is the executive summary, the overview. The second and third are the body of the whole text, and the last is the summary overview. So now I will get into that from starting from the first chapter. In the first chapter, it is divided into 3 segments. The first segment goes up to the sutra number 20. And then the next segment goes up to sutra number 29. And the last segment goes from sutra number 30 all the way till the end, the 51st sutra. So what is this 3 segments about? So the first beginning itself, Patanjali Muni says, as you begin the reading, you will figure out the first statement is Atha Yoga Anushasanam. So he's basically saying this is how yoga is explained. And then he goes on to say Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So here the thing is, he's saying it is the regulation of your chitta. The word Nirodha has to be understood as regulation. And so why is it regulation of the chitta? What is the chitta? So if you don't know what is the chitta, you will get confused. If you read a lot of English translation, they will say chitta is the mind. And that is the greatest pitfall you can have. In fact, the roots of it goes to Swami Shivananda, who understood what chitta was. But to explain to people who didn't understand it, he wrote the word mind system. And when he wrote the mind system, Swami Shivananda, the people who followed him dropped the word system and people all started calling it the mind. Chitta is not the mind. Okay? So what it is what is the chitta? Well, for everything that is created, you and me, as well as all the inanimate stuff you see around yourself, there is this is only the expression of a subtler being that is in the spiritual space. And what is the spiritual space? The spiritual space is in the zone beyond the zone of light, outside the 3-dimensional world. Okay? And the thing is, you see, it is very interesting that people often fail to understand. How many of you here have ever done Gayatri Japa? Many of you have done, right? Okay. Now, the Gayatri Japa has to be done with understanding the meaning. It is an affirmation. But that affirmation is done after you do 3 invocation. What is the meaning of invocation? To draw on something and take it within you. Okay? And what are the 3 invocations you do? You call upon the spirit, the Devata, Gayatri, and for people who have done it, you'll open your palms like this, you will get Gayatri into your hands and take it into you. And then you will call upon Savitri and you will take it into you. Then you will call upon Saraswati and take it into you. And only after that you begin the mantra, the japa of Gayatri. How many of you have done it that way? Okay. So those of you who have done Sandhya Vandana have done it that way. Okay. And why is that very important? Because what happens is, Gaya or Ga refers to the body, physical body. The word Tra means to go beyond. Gayatri is the spirit that takes you beyond the body. So when it takes it beyond the body, this is what in popular yoga, what you say is going into the subtle body. Subtle body is the zone of vibrations. Vibrations that are in the zone of verbal vibrations, sound vibrations, or even electromagnetic vibrations, they are all in the 3-dimensional space that is governed by the universe that we know, that is governed by the light that is flowing over there, the light of the sun, right? Now, so the spirit takes your awareness beyond the physical body. The second spirit, when you do its avahana, that second spirit takes you beyond the light of the sun. So, Savita is the sun. Savitri is the one that takes you beyond the sun. And so into the spiritual domain. And the spiritual domain, to go even beyond that, is Saraswati, that takes you to the source of all knowledge, which is God, Ishvara, as you will see in the Yoga Sutras, right? Between in about the Sutra 24 or 25, that's what Patanjali Muni explains over there, right? So, why is it I bring this concept over here? Your chitta resides in your spiritual being. That is, the chitta is not in the physical world, not in the 3-dimensional world. The chitta sits in the spiritual zone, in the zone of Savitri. Right? And the chitta is your programmed entity, which has all the karmas and kleshas of who you are. And from the chitta over there is a moment-by-moment projection that is coming into the physical world that makes you who you are. Now, as part of the chitta, the chitta is the processor. And within the chitta, there are 5 kinds of programs running in there. And this is explained in the second pada of the Yoga Sutras, right? And one of them is called avidya. That is lack of understanding about what is the nature of existence. And the lack of understanding of the nature of existence and the other 4 programs that are there, among the other 4 programs that are there, 2 of them constitute the mind. What happens? Mind works in 2 phases. Actually, one is the zone of the chitta and the other is the separation of the mind. When you see something and you simply see, who is the seer? That is the bridge of the chitta and the mind. But then when you react to what you see, oh, this is good, this is bad, I like this, or whatever, that is the zone of the mind. Right? So the mind is the reactive program of the chitta. So now that we understand it, what does Patanjali Muni is saying in the second sutra? Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Vritti means activation. So Patanjali Muni is saying yoga is regulation of the activation of the chitta, which is your spiritual entity. Which means what happens? Don't let your mind astray. That is the point that he's trying to say in very simple language. And how do you train yourself to do that? And this is what Patanjali Muni says in the next 18 sutras and where it reaches for you. Actually, he begins by saying that learn to be a pure observer, a non-reactive observer. And to do that, you need to practice. And so you need to practice being a pure observer, and over a long period of time, when you learn to be non-reactive, at that point in time, he doesn't say it in the, actually he does say it in a very subtle way, that what enables you to reach that state of the higher awareness of the nature of existence is the fact that by being a pure observer, you are able to break down all the programs within you, and that purification leads you to have the higher experience of the higher knowledge. And of course, in Sutra 17, he tells you, you become a person who knows everything. The word samprajnata is the state that is explained over there. And effectively, the Sutra number 17, the way it is described in the executive summary of the first pada, is described in detail in the third pada. In the first pada, he simply says, what are the questioning process that is, the sutra explain,
Vitarka Vichara.
Yes, Vitarka is the questioning. Vitarka Vichara, Vitarka Vichara, Vitarka Vichara, Anand Asmita Anugamat Sampragyata. So, what is Vitarka? Questioning. Vichara is contemplation. Ananda is letting go. So be it, and letting go. And out of that, with you as a person who is the experiencer, who can sense, that is the Asmita, from that comes for you the state of the full higher knowledge about the nature of existence. And then after he says that, because it is the executive summary, he goes on to say, don't get misled into thinking that if you have any fixed ideas in your mind, God is in this form, this name, and all of these things, that what you're realizing, and if you think some spirit is God, then that's only how far you will reach. You will not reach the highest. The highest is beyond name and form. And so this explanation he gives through the sutra number 18, 19, 20. After that, there are two sutras that says how quickly you progress is depending upon how dedicated you are in your practice, how intensely you are in your practice. Okay? Then after that, from sutra number 23 to 29, I believe, is where he is explaining what is the nature of God. I told you the first, the executive summary is written in 3 parts. Sutra 1 to 20 is a part on its own. You could include Sutra number 21, 22 as part of that too, but that is one whole idea. That is, by being a pure observer and training yourself, you can reach the highest. Then from Sutra number 23, he says, Ishvara pranidhanat va. Va means or. Or by surrendering to Ishvara, to God, you can experience the same thing. And thereafter, in the next few sutras, he goes on to describe what is the nature of God. And the few descriptions that are made is, God is an entity who is outside. By the way, he uses the word Purusha. So we need to discuss what exactly Purusha means, just like we discussed Chitta. It has a very special meaning. Purusha means a sentient entity. Sentient entity means what? An entity that can react, that can change itself. Okay? So he says God is the special Purusha who is outside the cycle of karma. And then he says Ishvara, God, is the source of all knowledge of everything. Then he goes on to describe few more elements of God. That is, God is the guru of everyone at all times. I am not the guru over here. Kumarji is not the guru over here. We are all simply what we say as sharing what we know, but then the guru who leads you is the one who lights that knowledge within you, is your connection with God, and when the time comes, it is God who does that. So God is the guru of everyone at all times. Then after that, he goes on to say, the connection from Ishvara to you, to all the sentient being, or it is to actually from Guru to from Ishvara to all of creation. The connection is pranava. The word pranava again is a very loaded word. Anu means the smallest particle. Anava means in the nature of the smallest particle, which is the nature of vibration. And pranava is that vibration that connects you into the source of everything. The prefix pranava refers to prakrishta. Prakrishta means the core entity, core of everything is the prakrishta of everything. And so it is the one that connects into the core of everything. So now that is the nature, and that we interpret as Omkara, Om. And so this gives you the understanding of the second segment of Ishvara. So you can understand that there is one way in which to approach God is Ishvara Pranidhana. But Ishvara Pranidhana, you need to be very clear. If you put a name and form to a God, you will only reach the world of spirit, and it's only that far you will go. Whereas on the other hand, the idea of God beyond name and spirit, simply from the qualifiers that Patanjali says, that is the idea of the higher God. And if you mentally surrender to that entity, that too will lead you over there. And what does that enable you to do? Once you have surrendered everything to God that is beyond name and form, whatever comes in life you accept. Okay? So you are unaffected by things that come. Now, the third segment of the first pada is, commonly people are not in a stage where they can be a pure observer and not be affected by things, right? Let's have a show of hands over here. How many people feel comfortable if everything is quiet and dark and you're still awake? Do you have a need for a music to play? Okay, how many of you have a need for a music to play, or some noise, or somebody talking or something? Most people cannot remain that quietness and that silence for a period of time. In fact, what it is said is, one of the teachers has said that if you are able to sit with quietness for 3 hours, that is a great siddhi, that, nothing at all. But anyway, now, because people are normally in a stage where the mind is wandering, and often forget the mind is one source of a problem that even creates health problems within the body. So what happens is, you have people who have, oh, my neck feels stiff, I have a pain in the back, okay? And the thing is, all these are things, whether of the mental or physical disharmony within yourself. When you have mental or physical disharmony within yourself, you cannot sit quietly and be a pure observer, right? So what happens is, you need to begin in small steps. So Patanjali Muni, actually, I think it is Sutra number 33, where he actually says, the beginning process is with moderation. And how does moderation begin? No, actually it is Sutra number 33. Maitri Karuna Mudita Upekshanam Sukha Dukkha Punya Apunya Vishayanam Bhavanataha Chitta Prasadhanam. So in Sutra number 33, he begins to explain that start with moderation. So if you see something that is attractive to you, that is that you like very much, have a sense of friendliness towards it. Not a sense of possessiveness, but have a sense of friendliness towards it. And if there is something that you see that is miserable, don't have a sense of, oh, get out of my sight. Don't have that kind of a sense, but have a sense of compassion when you see something miserable. Actually, the word used is karuna. In other words, what happens is, karuna, compassion, is not the right word. The right word is you observe, and at the same time, you don't get emotionally involved. That is the nature of karuna. Right? You connect with it, but the light that comes from there doesn't make you emotionally involved. That is the nature of karuna. But you still have to connect with it. That means you don't ignore it. Then the next word is when you see something that is completely wicked, that is completely, terrible, unvirtuous, evil thing that is going on. What do you do when you see something that is evil going on? You just ignore it and walk away from it. Don't let it touch you. It is like you shut your eye and walk away from it. Then, if you see something that is very virtuous that is happening there, something good, then have a feeling of inner happiness, mudita as it is called. So, this is what is called the period of moderation. And this sutra, people have written volumes on this sutra. The idea of moderation, they will call it as the Brahma Viharas, that this is what takes you onto this. This is like it is very interesting. The word used is Chitta Prasadanam. You see, all of you go to temple and you get your prasad. Do you know what is prasad? You see, the word pra means prakrishta, and the sad comes from the word sadhya. What enables you to become a performer in the inner connected sense? In other words, you do your swadharma. So, the thing is, it enables the chitta to do its swadharma. That is the idea of chitta prasadana, right? So, the thing is basically, here when you, starting from this process, he says, from the process of moderation, you go on into the where you have the ability to focus a little bit, and it doesn't matter what you focus on. You can focus on anything. If you love your spouse very much, just think of your spouse over there. That is fine, no problem. If you like the scenery sitting on the top of a mountain, do that. That is no problem. And so it is whether a person or an entity, an environment, wherever you can focus your mind, and that is a place where it doesn't create any kind of, it just gives you a sense of inner happiness and connection. Be over there, right? So that is the way in which you begin your meditation. Then later on, as he explains in the first sutra, when you're able to have the idea of full engrossment into something, from the idea of something that is physically present that you get engrossed into, if you get into something that is subtle, that is beyond the physical world, if you engross within, that can lead you into a state of higher connectivity, and that happens only when the purification has happened, and that takes you into the state of samadhi. And when you are in that state of samadhi, the first experience is ritambhara tatra prajna. The prajna means the knowledge of the intuitive knowledge, you can call it, but the knowledge of the inner core, inner nature of existence, right? And what happens is that when the first stage of samadhi, what happens is you connect into the cosmic flow, into the spiritual world. So you're able to understand the nature of the flow of the spiritual world, which impacts the physical world. In other words, the nature of creation. Rita means the cosmic flow. Ritambhara tatra prajna, as he explains over there. But then, that doesn't mean you're fully purified. All you have done is you have done momentary silencing of your chitta. But when you're completely purified, and when you're able to go into a point where all the time, even without having to sit in meditation, you're already connected. That is called the state of nirbija samadhi. In that state, there is no stimulation. You don't have to sit to be in that state, always connected. Then, in which case, you go into the higher state of connectivity, as he explains in the first pada of the Yoga Sutras. And that means full purification. Now, I'm going to, actually, I shouldn't stop here. I'll quickly, briefly run over the second and third chapter together, and then and the last to this, and then I will open for questions. So, in the second and third chapter, it is the body of the text. So, what is Patanjali Muni? And the second pada is divided into two distinct segments, and in these two distinct segments, the first part is explaining about what are the nature of the activations of the chitta that happens. In the first chapter, he said you have to regulate the chitta vritti, right? Chitta vritti nirodha. So, in the second chapter, he is going to tell you what is the source of the chitta vritti. And that is the programs that are within you, the 5 programs that are within you. The 5 programs that are within you, Patanjali Muni basically states as, I already said, avidya, that's a lack of understanding of the nature of existence. Then he talks about raga and dvesha. Raga means whatever attracts you, dvesha means whatever has aversion for you. And this is the reactive nature of the mind. And then there is the asmita and the abhinivesha. Asmita is me, the experiencer. Unless you experience something, you cannot experience a higher knowledge either. You have to experience in order to understand anything, to experience higher knowledge, right? And that asmita does not involve the mind. It is only what you would call as the nature of the observer. It's one that can experience. And the last one, abhinivesha, means me, the person who acts and reacts. Okay, so now from a Vedantic perspective, the same 5 elements have been condensed into 3. And in the condensation process of the 3, there is a little confusion that also arises. So in the Vedantic process, of course, vidya or avidya is one element which is the same. Then you have the manas that comes in over there, and the next one that comes in over there is ahankara. Okay? The vidya or the avidya is called buddhi in the Vedantic system. Mano, buddhi, ahankara. And these are the 3 elements that are there within this 5. So the the mind element is the reactivity of like, dislike. The buddhi element is the vidya, avidya. And the ahankara is the sense of the combination of asmita and abhinivesha. When you put it this way, people will tell you ahankara is bad. Whereas on the other hand, when you parse it according to the Yoga Sutra, it says that there are 2 sides of it. Me, the experiencer, and me, the doer. And the me, the doer, you want to get rid of. But on the other hand, me, the experiencer, if you don't have it, you cannot have any realization. Okay? So this is the parsing that comes about over there. So in the beginning of the first sutra, second pada itself, Patanjali Muni is trying to tell you that the real purpose of coming into this body, what is it? And that is in the second sutra. So the first 2 sutras are very indicative. The first sutra says, tapas svadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani kriya yogaha. So, and then the second sutra says, samadhi bhavanartaha kleshatanu karana arthacha. So what it means is, karana means an instrument, tanu is the body. Samadhi bhavanartaha, with the intent of attaining samadhi. Klesha means impure. Klesha tanu karana arthascha. In other words, what happens is the physical body is here, which is an impure body, and in order to attain samadhi, what is it that you do? The first sutra says it, tapaswadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani kriya yoga. You do kriya yoga because you have the body, you have to do action. So in order to purify the body, you engage in action in order to pure yourself. And how do you engage in the action? And the kriya yoga in the Vedantic sense is called karma yoga. It is in the Yoga Sutra, we call it as kriya yoga. So how do you do the kriya yoga? Well, there are three elements to it. First is, actually I'll go backward. First is, you surrender to God, Ishvara Pranidhana. Second is, you seek to know why or what. You mentally ask and let go. The seeking to know, to contemplate in it is Swadhyaya. And what happens when whatever act you function, you surrender to God and you seek to know why, and you're in that state, then what happens is there is no reactivity. Oh, this is bad, this act is bad, good, why am I suffering from this? There is no reactivity. What does that result in? That results in purification. That is called tapas. And the tapas, actually, the word comes from the root word tapa, means heat. So tapas is purification by heat. So often what happens when the body works, there is heat being produced. And that heat is what dissolves all the karmas that are over there. Right? And so what happens is, I'm going to give you a little joke over here. That is, when there is the clutter of all the stresses that are there in your mind, and you cannot think, and you're feeling fully stressed over there, what do? You have some alcoholic beverage and the heat comes out from the body, right? So the thing is, you see, that is a external way of tapas, but it doesn't lead to long-term purification. Okay? So you can understand the nature of tapas, how it clears the nadis. Okay? So the second pada begins with the idea that you have come into this body. Through engaging with the body to do your swadharma, you purify yourself. And as you purify yourself, he has already explained the source of all these having come into the body is the five kleshas, that impurities, the programs in you. And when you learn to be a pure observer, as explained in the first pada, you purify yourself, you begin to understand the nature of existence, and that is what leads you to the state of the higher awareness. And the second pada, the word kaivalya is used, and kaivalya has a very special meaning. The special meaning of kaivalya is that you are there and yet nothing affects you. And that is the state of the word kaivalya, is the state of aloneness. Aloneness does not mean that you have loneliness. Aloneness does not mean loneliness. Okay? Aloneness means not being affected by anything. Okay? That is the state of the word kaivalya, the word that comes over there. And then after that, Patanjali Muni goes on to explain, obviously he has given you the concept. But on the other hand, concepts don't necessarily help you to work through the process to realize that. So what does he do? He explains the Ashtanga Yoga, the famous Ashtanga Yoga you have learned about. He tells you, I believe it is in Sutra number 28. Let me look at that. Yes. Actually, he tells you in Sutra number 27 that you need to cross 7 boundaries in order to attain the state of inner knowledge or the intuitive knowledge. So Sutra number 27 tells you, Tasya saptadha pranta bhumihi prajna. You have to cross 7 boundaries to reach the state of the intuitive awareness. And then Sutra number 28 tells you, Yoga angaha yoga anga anushtana, by the practice of the yoga's parts, ashuddhi chaye jnana dipti aviveka khyate. So from there, that purification gives you the higher awareness. And then sutra number 29 is what tells you the 8 angas, the Ashtanga yoga that is described over there, that many of you have heard of. Asana, pranayama, dharana, dhyana, samadhi are the 8 angas, right? Yama, niyama, asana, prana, I only said 6. Yama and niyama are the most important ones. Now, and while he is explaining these Ashtanga elements in the rest of the chapter, rest of the element of the second pada, in that he explains 5 of them, and then the remaining 3 goes into the next segment, that is the third pada. When he explains, he basically points out, he spends a lot of time in yama and niyama. Now, the way he has described yama and niyama over there, he will tell you there are the 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. You see, those are all contextual to the time of those times. But the real idea of yama means being true to your conscience. There should be no conflict within you when you're engaging in your life. If you feel conflicted, you're violating yama. And the second element of it is niyama, the concept of having regularity in living. And what you will find is, in the niyama definition, we just went through what is Kriya Yoga. We said tapaswadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. Okay? When he is explaining niyama, he is going to add 2 more. Shaucha santosha tapaswadhyaya ishvara pranidhani niyamaha. So what it is doing is, he is simply saying that you have a sense of happiness, satisfaction, santosha within, and you observe cleanliness. And the idea of cleanliness is something that is described in different way for different people. But if you feel you're clean, you're clean. Okay? So if you don't let anything touch you, you're clean. Right? It has nothing got to do with, it's more about inner cleanliness, spiritual cleanliness, rather than, having a shower and all of that, this thing and all of that, that's the idea of it. Okay? So the yama and niyama and in the description of the niyama, the last of it which he says is Ishvara Pranidhana, he basically says it is Ishvara Pranidhana that finally leads you to Samadhi. Okay? So in other words, many people will tell you, if you simply observe yama and niyama, that alone will lead you to Samadhi. Okay? And so this is the regular practice that in the Hindu culture, it says, lead your life true to your conscience, automatically it will come, and observe the practices that are part of your sanskaras, automatically it will happen. So, if there are people who are doing daily sandhyavandana and you're having your ritual way in which you have been living in your home, and those of you who have come from traditional families, I don't know, but some of you look young, and I don't know how traditional family you came from, how much. But for the people in my generation, we have the families we have come from, in the morning when you wake up, what will happen is, people wash up a little bit, and then in our little altar over there, you light a lamp, and then you put a little bit of vibhuti in your head, and then you do a sashtanga namaskara, you may say a prayer, and you'll do your sandhyavandana at that time or whatever. This is the way in which you begin your day, and then you let this thing, and the evening when you come, again you do your sandhyavandana. In the middle of the day also you're supposed to do the sandhyavandana, and how the ritualistic way in which you do, you're supposed to lead to it. But there is a danger in ritualism too. To think of it as a do and don't is a pitfall. Everything has to work easily and seamlessly. Okay? So there should be no rigidity, and life should flow not like I have to do. It has to flow like let it happen. That is when you're within the yogic flow. But in any case, let's proceed further. Then in the next 3, after yama and niyama, in the second pada, Patanjali Muni discusses about asana, pranayama and pratyahara. Asana is all about getting physical alignment so that the body is not disturbed when you're sitting for pranayama and meditation. And the pranayama is all about regulating the vitality within it. And only when you regulate vitality, you are ready to go into higher meditation. This is a very big chapter over here, and I don't know whether I can cover the elements of it. In order to explain this, I need to explain the nadi system in your system, this thing, and how it is without enough vitality, the udana vayu that comes from the atmanadi cannot connect into the highest level of realization. If we have the time, I will come back to it, but this is a very profound area of how pranayama functions with the nadi system and leads you into the higher level of meditative connectivity. Then the idea of pratyahara is about being able to feel the vibrations within you. In fact, there are 2 sutras for pratyahara. First says, being able to withdraw your senses, and the second says, by which you have complete control of your senses. So pratyahara is about being able to sense your vibrations within and controlling them. It is not simply about withdrawing within, which is how people will speak. That's not right. It is about gaining control. Then in the third pada of the Yoga Sutra, Patanjali Muni is actually explaining what happens in dharana, dhyana, samadhi, the 3 elements of the higher experience in yoga. In fact, dharana is the point of focus. And remember, the thing is, in the first pada, he has already told you, by being one-pointed focus, you can train your mind to be, but not be reactive, right? So to train yourself that way. So dharana is the point of focus. Dhyana is when that point of focus stops the mind completely. So the intellect, the mind goes beyond into a state where it is no longer being reactive. So when there is complete silence and there is nothing happened, you feel like you have zoned out kind of thing. That is the zoning out, is the state of dhyana. Samadhi is the state when the intuitive connectivity happens. The connectivity happens with the spiritual domain and beyond, and that is the state of samadhi. And in fact, later on in the third pada, Patanjali Muni talks about the 3 phases of attaining them. The 3 phases are called Nirodha Parinama, Samadhi Parinama, and Ekagrata Parinama. The Nirodha Parinama is the stopping of the mind, and that is the equivalent of dhyana. Okay? And then from there comes the Samadhi Parinama. That is when you get connected into the cosmic, into the spiritual domain and the cosmic intelligence. And from there comes Ekagrata Parinama, where connecting into the cosmic intelligence, you're able to imbibe what is the your intuitive understanding of whatever question you may have had in your mind. So this what is explained. Thereafter, in the third pada, it is all about what are the experiences you can have from this. And when you have intuitive experiences, that gives you enormous ability to sense beyond the body, all the siddhis that come. Patanjali Muni towards the end of the third pada goes on to say, don't get carried away by it, okay? Because what it is you need to understand finally, each one of us, no matter what your siddhis and abilities are, you are only as an entity who is doing your job as part of the cosmic flow. If you think yourself as superior or different from others, then you have basically fallen into a pitfall. It's a pitfall for you, and you will never reach the highest. And one other thing he basically says is, realize that being in this body, you are not God. You're distinctly different from God. Only when you realize that, you will realize God. If you think I am God, you will not realize God. Okay, so the thing is basically this a point that he makes over there in the last part of the third pada. The fourth pada is all about, and as you saw over there, it has only 34 sutras. And it is the smallest of the padas over there, and there is a reason for it. Patanjali Muni is not focused in telling you what is the nature of existence. Patanjali is focused in telling you who are you and how I can realize it. That is what he has given you, all of these and this. But then once you are in that, somebody is going to have the question, what is the meaning of existence and all of that? So he gives a little bit in a nutshell, because his focus on how you can realize for yourself. So in a nutshell, what he says is, it is the asmita, that is the sense of me, the experiencer of the higher entity, Ishvara, that results in creation. So this in Kashmir Shaivism is said that creation happening is like for God to go in front of a mirror, like a God as an artist is creating something. So that is how creation happens. And within that creation, in the spiritual world, there are three levels of world we look upon. Bhu is the physical world, Bhuva is the spiritual world, and Swa is the source of everything, right? God. So what happens is, we have to be very clear that in yoga, when people talk about the three bodies, that is the gross body, that is the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and Karna Sharira, it is not referring to the three worlds, okay? The Sthula Sharira is the physical body. The Sukshma Sharira is the vibration, and the vibration is also part of the three-dimensional world. And the Karna Sharira is in the spiritual world. The Swa is beyond the spiritual world, beyond this thing. So there shouldn't be a confusion when you talk about the three bodies and the three worlds, the three levels of existence. Okay. So now in this last fourth pada, Patanjali Muni is saying that it is the spiritual world is defined by a certain rule-based system. That is how the process of karmas, how they work, and the rebirth that happens and all of that works over there, and how by being a pure observer, you're able to go outside the cycle of birth and death, and what are the different phases of you can be in when you go beyond rebirth, what can happen. So there are three ways in which you can go. The highest way, he says, is, or the Yoga Sutra basically says, that when all your karmas and kleshas are gone, and the only thing you have in your mind is Ishvara, that is beyond name and form, the source of everything, you actually connect into that entity. You can say you become one, or you stay with that entity. Your entity of who you are is there, but you're still with God. You can even say you become God, or you're connected with God everlastingly. So that is one state. And that state he calls as Chanaprati Yogi. At every moment in time, you're connected over there. The second state is that all your karmas and kleshas are all gone. So there is no purpose for rebirth, but you're not always connected into that Ishvara Pranidhana, that state. When you're not connected over there, whatever is your entity, it merges into the vibration of the cosmic flow and in the spiritual domain, and there's no entity left after that. You can call that as another kind of a moksha, right? And then the third one, which he does not discuss, and this is very much part of the Hindu tradition. Actually, it's part of every theistic tradition. They do it in different ways in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and all of that. But in Hinduism, that many of you can relate to, is that what happens is, in the last moment when you leave your body, even though you may have some karmas and attachments left over there, but in the last moment, if your awareness goes beyond the physical world, you don't come back for a rebirth into the physical world. Okay? And this is what you would have read in the various Puranas, that is it that person Ajamela or whoever, who was a sinner all his life, but in the last moment he calls on Narayana and he does not have rebirth, kind of thing. You might have heard some stories like that over there. And that is the reason in the when you know a person is in their last few breaths, what do they do in our tradition? They pour Ganga water in the mouth, and then they basically are chanting the name of this thing, so that only think of God at this time, let go of all the physical this thing, right? So what happens is, even though they may have some karmas, kleshas, attachment or whatever in the end, but if they, in the last moment, if they their awareness goes beyond the physical world, they don't come back. And that is the reason you give offerings to the departed. Okay, but these are not part of the Yoga Sutras. I just have kind of mentioned to complete the story over here. Okay, so with that, I'm kind of concluded over here, but let's have a few minutes if you have any questions. If you have any questions, feel free to speak up. And in the meantime, as you are getting ready for your questions, I will share the screen over here. This is the conference that will be in Pondicherry next year. So it is called the First International Conference on Yoga Concepts for Global Application, and it will be held in Pondicherry. And January 30th and February 1st is the conference. And you're all able to see the screen, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And this conference is, there is a post-conference training session also. So this is supported by all our organizations. And the key goal of the conference I'm going to put in over here is the first international conference on yoga concept for global application will seek to introduce the life cycle and lifestyle concept of yoga, individual and social aspects of yoga related to dharma. In other words, the duties we as humans are bound to follow for individual fulfillment and cosmic harmony. Then we put in over here what we also talk about is that in every part of the world you have rituals in daily life, annual and life cycle observances like Vedic samskaras that are yogic in nature. So how you can understand all of those within the fold of yoga? So it is divided into the first part is called Yoga Concepts, and there are 2 sessions: Heritage of Yoga and its Modern Manifestation and Proliferation. Second session is called Yoga and Science, Mechanism of Yoga and its Measurement. And the second part is called Global Applications. First part, and it is from conception to end of life. So sowing the seeds, that is yoga, it begins from Garbha Sanskara. Why do people do Shimantam and these baby showers, and how in the pre-birth stage, how you influence it to early birth up to the age of 7. And then after the age of 7, laying the foundations, yoga solutions to enhance early and adolescent education and growth. We should probably say growth is what it should be. I'll change that instead of education. So leveraging the Nadi system growth to enhance learning abilities and understand the role of dharma in living. And then comes there are 4 more sessions in global applications. Yoga solutions for advancing in higher education and career orientation, stress management for young adults, simple regular lifestyle practice for enhancing academic performance, building confidence and leadership skills. Then comes balancing work and family life, finding yogic harmony in the rhythm of life. So with the role of marriage, career, children, how all of them fall within, and how you can lead in a yogic way. Then comes session 7, precision yoga therapy, measured application for chronic diseases. Then comes yoga for improving quality of life and spiritual awakening with healthy aging. So this entire life cycle perspective in which the conference has been put together. And we have post-conference teacher training for adolescents and Panchaprana training for yoga instructors, introduction to measured yoga therapy. This will be happening from February 2nd to 4th, right? And the map of that facility is all over there, so this thing. So any of you who are interested, or you're welcome. What I'm going to do for you is, I'm going to share, put a link over here in the chat box, that if you're interested in this, the brief conference brochure is here, and you can respond to say if you're interested right over here. Okay, so I'm going to put this for you in the chat box, so you can feel free to go and look at it into your own time, right? So here you have the links to the conference thing, as well as if you're interested in it and if you want to respond over there to say whether you want to participate in it in person or online or whatever. If you're going to be in India at that time, you can respond over there. Actually, just to give you a sense in terms of what the response looks like. So if I click on the response over here, it will take you into a Google Forms, and it is telling you, do you plan to attend the conference? And if so, whether in person, then in which case, what kind of accommodation you need, how many days you want to be, whether for only the conference or whether for the post-conference, how many people will be accompanying you, and if you have any personal needs, if you're elderly and you need any personal needs, all of that, your age group, all of that, and then your name, address, and then what organization you're associated with, and then it gives you all the segments there, and what is your interest in the conference, and so that's what it is, right? So you can feel free to respond if you wish. So now any questions? Another 5 minutes and then I need to go. Yes, go ahead.
Ishvara Pranidhanam. Now Gita says Sarva Dharma Parityaja Mamekam Sarvaja Ham Sapapepu Mukshimachuja. So Krishna says that come to my surrender to me. But problem, my question is how to quit Sarva Dharma Parityaja. By doing this yogas, everything, we can do that stage or what? How do the
See, when you have brought up this question, it is again a little bit of a complicated thing, like I was telling you about the role of pranayama. It involves a lot of discussion, okay? But I'm going to lay a few parameters over here, which will probably raise more questions in your mind. First thing I'm going to tell you is, anybody who comes into the body is not God. So if Krishna says, I am God, come to me, and this thing kind of thing, that is not the Krishna we are talking about. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna says, the real Krishna is not this Krishna you see in this body. Okay? So that gives you a little bit of an insight. Okay? So don't look upon Krishna as God. God is beyond name and form.
Okay.
Second point to to focus on is the concept that the entire Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between two friends. Krishna and Arjuna were lifelong friends, and so they are contextually talking to each other relative to their relationship, for Krishna to explain to Arjun as to why it is he should be engaging in that war and all of these things. Okay? So the Bhagavad Gita cannot be considered a comprehensive understanding of yoga. There are glimpses of yoga, but it is not a comprehensive document on yoga. Okay, so I have set these two parameters over here that probably is kind of coming in a very strong way to many of you over here, but it needs a lot more discussion. Okay,
Okay.
so I'll leave it over there.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat box. You want to take a look at it, Dr. Rajan?
Can you elaborate what you said at the end? If a person's dying and awareness goes beyond the physical world in the last moments, they will not have rebirth. That is correct. Okay, this again goes into a little deeper discussion. The discussion goes into the 4 levels of awareness, and these are called varnas, and the Varna system has nothing to do with caste, and these are associated with the 8 chakras. You have all heard of the 7 chakras. The 7 chakras come from the Tantra system, and the Tantra system is always looking at the spiritual world, how to work with the spiritual world. Whereas above the spiritual world, above the bhuva, is the zone of swa. So the connection into the swa comes from the 8th chakra. And this is described, of course, in the Vedic, a hymn called Narayana Sukta, and it is also described in the Vedic, actually it is in the Aranyaka in the Taittiriya Aranyaka called Aruna Prashna. It is described the 8th chakra, or the 8th level of awareness, right? So the 7 levels of awareness and the 8th level of awareness, these define the zones of awareness you are in. So the chakra system, we need to go in detail. That is how the Mooladhara is the lack of awareness, and then the Swadhisthana, self-centered awareness. Manipura is the group awareness, and the Anahata is the all of existence, humanitarian awareness. Vishuddhi chakra is questioning what is beyond the body. Agnya chakra is the state of assumptions. This is what existence is all about. And the 7th chakra is letting go. If this is what existence is all about, who cares? The Vairagya Bhava, this is where, Buddhist philosophy resides in. Whereas on the other hand, the 8th chakra is what is called the Atma chakra, which is described in the Narayana Suktam, where it is Adho Nishtya Vidasyante Nabhyam Uparitishthati Jwalamala Kulambhati Vishwasyayatanam Mahat. So that 8th chakra, which has beyond that is part of the Atmanadi that connects into the higher awareness. So this is beyond the discussion at this time, so I will leave it there. So what happens is, relative to the question, when your awareness is beyond the throat level, then in which case, in the last moment. And what happens is, our awareness on a moment by moment basis is going into different places. Okay? Like, for example, each one of you, when you're in this discussion, all of you are in your Vishuddhi chakra and higher, because you're all thinking, what is the nature of existence, what is beyond in this conversation. But on the other hand, next moment, when you go on to your kitchen to make your puri, you're wondering, whether the batter is ready, what to do or whatever. Then in which case you're coming at the lower. If you're making it for your family, there it is in the Manipura chakra or in your Swadhisthana, you have to do it right. So it is moving constantly. So that is where that awareness, how it moves, comes in, and this is a longer discussion. See, what I have done is I have thrown so much at you. So from here on, Kumarji will take you and maybe you will go into this deeper discussion. But at any point in time later on, if we need to have further discussion, I can come back. But today I have another appointment, so I need to run.
So thank you, Dr. Rajan. Actually, like always the practice, at the end of every chapter, I will invite you to come and speak them. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan, sir.
And those
Others
of you
can
who
just
would...
stay on for a few minutes. We'll let Dr. Rajan go. Thank
Yeah.
you, Dr.
Thank you so much. And as I said, the conference is there. So it will be an opportunity to meet in person. And those of you who are in Florida, in the month of September, we may have an opportunity to have a weekend retreat in Melbourne Beach.
Okay.
And so if some of you would like to come and stay there for a day or two, that potential exists over there. In the month of September, I will be able to, we are having discussion, I will know end of the day today. And so I will inform, Dawn, and she will communicate with all of you later. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. For the rest of the group, we have another 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, whatever. Going back to Lavanya's question, we will discuss all this in detail, Lavanya. He has thrown a lot of things in terms of chakras and 7 chakras, 8 chakras, the 8th chakra, what it does. All that is there in the sutras. We will discuss all of them. So don't worry. So this 1 year, as we go through this, you will learn a lot. So all that he said was, at the time of death, if the awareness level is at a stage which is above Vishuddhi, and then there is then the person, even though he may have karmas, he will not have a rebirth. That's what he said. You understand that? Lavanya went away. Oh, she's here.
Yeah.
So at the time of death, if that awareness level to be at the Vishuddhi level or above, that awareness level has to be at the Vishuddhi level or above. For it to be at that Vishuddhi level or above, then your internally you have to raise yourself from all these attachments. You have to raise yourself to that. And that is why the constant practice is needed. Yeah, all this yama, niyama, all that. In fact, there was a question on niyama this morning. Yogeshwaran, he said, I know every day I do Sandhya Vandana and all that. That is part of the niyama. So it is very difficult or almost impossible right at the time of death in the last 2-3 days to just think of the divine and then not come back. Very difficult, right? You may be able to do it in a few seconds here and there. Yeah, already you're losing yourself mentally, I'm saying. Where is the possibility of remaining with awareness to the divine unknown? It is very difficult unless you start this practice at a young age. That's why it is necessary to do this at a very young age to get connected, or at least start this practice of meditation, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. That's what you say. And to get to the dharana, dhyana, samadhi state, we have to go through the other steps. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. We have to go through all that. So start young. That's actually the message. Start young. As young, the younger you are, the better it is. Start young. And do it every day. Yes, Tatiana. Yes, go ahead, Tatiana.
Is that the reason why when somebody is dying, they call priest to bring the person back to think about God? And could that be the reason also why they don't recommend for dying person to take painkillers? Because that may take the pain but muddles the mind. I never took painkillers, so I don't know. So I'm asking.
I mean,
Is...
bringing the priest is just that. But generally, in the Hindu custom, the priest comes almost at the final stage, pretty much. Okay.
Yes.
I personally feel at that stage it's more of a ritual than any kind of spiritual help to the dying soul. It's more of a ritual. You put some water in the mouth, the water from the sacred river Ganga, Ganges. All that is done. It's more of a ritual. But as yoga students, we have to look at it from the point of view of spirituality, which means the person who is in the last stages of life must have that awareness, right? Must be able to think and connect.
Yes.
So whatever rituals are being done and whatever things that are being done today in the modern world is I'm saying it is more of a ritual to satisfy ourselves, the survivors, saying that, oh, I have done the best for my this departing soul. I have done my best for it to somehow attain moksha, somehow not to come back. That's what we do. We try our best. But the soul has to help itself when it is alive. And that is what the Yoga Sutra is saying.
Yes, okay. I'm just trying to apply it to other religions. And even if it's a ritual, it will bring the person's mind, even if it's a prayer, back to the correct way to think of God.
Yeah. I mean, there is at least we are giving the chance. That's all we can do. But
Yes.
thinking of it logically, if if I'm 85 years old, I'm in the deathbed, and all through my life, I have never done any kind of spiritual activity. I have not done any kind of yama, niyama. I have not done any kind of deep prayer, deep thinking about God, nothing. Do you think in the last 1 minute I will be able to do that? Very unlikely.
Yes.
But we still provide the chance to the departing soul.
Yes.
It's not that the priest is going to do, just the priest coming there is going to help. It is how the person who is about to die, how he is receiving it and connecting. That's the most important part. It's not just a sprinkling that Ganges water is going to do something great. It is all part of the process, but it is the person who is on the throes of death, how aware they are and how much they absorb. See, Dr. Rajan spoke for almost an hour and 15 minutes. If a person here is not tuned, he would have got only 5% of what is said. Right?
Yes.
Because the mind is wandering. And every time you catch and say, oh, what was he saying? So then you start listening for some time, and then again the mind wanders. So, but if you are tuned to this kind of lectures and things like that, then you absorb a lot more. It could be 30%, 40%, 50%, 80%, 90%, 100%. So
Yes,
it
I
depends on how you prepare yourself, how you train yourself, how you tune yourself.
yes. Once in our lives, me and my husband, we were in an air crash, and my husband stood up and shouted, "Allah!" And I look at him. What is it? What is he doing? Because I knew that we will live somehow. I have deep intuition, and I was looking for my handbag under the seat, and he was pushing me. So I would say he is more spiritually evolved than me, because his thought went to God, mine went to my handbag.
Ah,
So it would be a good example that I will be reborn again and he will not.
we don't know. We don't know. You cannot just by one incident we cannot say that, but it all builds up. So I mean that's what I'm saying. The younger you are, the younger you start, the better you're better off one is, and you also have to have the right kind of teachings to get there. For example, I think the youngest one is probably here is Yogeshwaran, who's not married yet. So he has a great chance. That doesn't mean that others don't have. If I am thinking that I have a great chance, why not everybody else here? Everyone else is probably younger than me here. So it's just being at the right place at the right time, listening to everything and practicing.
Another question would be that if you think
Hold
of
on,
God.
hold on, Titania. Let me see if anybody else has a question. I'll come back to you. We are almost, yeah, we are at 8:30. Maybe another 5 minutes. Any questions? Anyone else? Yes, Tammy.
Briefly, great questions, Tatiana. And Kumar, there's a good reason why we do this class 20, 30, 40 times. Because even if our mind does wander, we're wandering on a question from the class. And if we expand that question, even, you know what I mean? Like it kind of answers itself through the class. And then we go to a next question the next year. So yeah, thanks for doing this all the time. And then also on Tatiana's thing, that was a very bright insight. And what I was thinking was, how he yelled Allah, and it brought me to like our purpose. What is our purpose, right? And how did we come in? And I don't know that we're all like someone's more spiritually evolved. I think we're all just on our mission. And if it's our mission to be born again and again and again, it just is, because we have a big mission, which could be karma klesha. Okay, we get all that. But yeah, it makes me think of like just that intuitive thing that happens when we need it. And that's where he went. So anyway, sometimes Tatiana, it could be grabbing a child and holding them against the seat, you know, and one person could be shouting, God, take me. And the other person's like, wait, save the children, you know? So it's just whatever our mission is. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Yeah, Ashwini, you have a question.
Yeah, I do have a question for my daughter actually. She's
Uh-huh.
11 years old, and we were just talking yesterday night, and then she all of a sudden asked me, like, what is the source of all the creation and what is the point of life?
Mm.
I don't know the answer for those things. I have been pursuing that. Is that an easy way to make kids keep them curious and then pursue these answers and explain these concepts in early times? Like, is there any way we can? I mean, first of all, I have to understand it before I explain it to her. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, what I can tell you, you're at a much mature level than what she can understand. But to her, she's what, 11 years old. That's what you said, right?
yes.
So to a 11-year-old, the purpose of life is to live.
Okay.
That's all you can tell her. And to live in a dharmic way. So now you have to explain to her what is dharmic way of living. Maybe small little things like, that's what we are going to discuss in Yama later on.
Okay.
There are 5 aspects, and similarly, those 5 aspects. But very simply, dharma means that you don't steal from somebody else. These things she can understand. What are you trying to tell her? You're trying to tell her that listen to your conscience.
Mm-hmm.
2 things. Conscience is the voice of God or Ishvara or whatever you want to call the higher dimension beyond the spiritual level. That is where it is coming from. We all have that. I normally give this example when you're going on the road and the speed limit is 40 miles per hour. The moment you go over 40, there is a message inside you saying you're across the speed limit, doesn't it? This happens to everyone. It happens to me all the time. But then the mind will kick in and say, hey, 40, if I go at 41, 42, it doesn't matter. No cop is going to come and catch me. Up to 5 miles, I know they don't, there is a margin of error. Even 10 miles is not. So instead of going at 40, I go at 50. So but right the moment I cross 40, there will be a message. So this is what that divine is. This is the divine connection that we have. But this message becomes milder and milder and milder when the kleshas are very high. The samskaras are very high, especially the kleshas are very high. You hardly hear it. So you must tell your daughter, she is at an age where she can still connect in such a way that she is able to hear it.
Okay.
Hear it, when I say hear it, doesn't mean that it has to come as a sound. It is more of that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
We will see more in detail in the following classes. But this is what the dharmic feeling and aesthetic living. Aesthetic living. These are 2 very important things.
Okay.
Aesthetic living, you understand that by aesthetic living, what we mean is cutting out all these unnecessary things that we do in life just for the sake of society or whatever. Loud music. It's definitely not a spiritual thing. Similarly, there are so many other activities. I don't want to discuss everything here. It may cause issues with people here. So this is something that you should think about. Aesthetic living and dharmic living. Actually, they are one and the same, but you can split it out initially, but this is something that you can tell your daughter, and as she grows, she will build on it. And in the future classes, when we discuss, I can tell you probably in a harsher way what we should not be doing.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I won't say you should not be doing. I'll be pointing out these are things that cause issues for us. Let me
Sure.
put it that way. I'm not here to, I'm not a moral police here. I'm not going to tell what we should do and what we should not do. Any question? Somebody else was raising their hand. Any other question? Or we can wind up. It's almost time. Okay, thank you everyone. Namaste. I will see you next Saturday at 7 a.m. and we will start with the sutras next week. So please come prepared. Namaste.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste, everybody.
Namaste,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don, in the background. Thank you very much.